Okay, so hello and welcome to IWA's fourth webinar as part of a waterways restoration conference series of 2020. And this is a joint programme run by the Canal River Trust and the Inland Waterways Association. My name is Alex Melson and I am the Volunteers Coordinator for the Inland Waterway Association. I will be your host for today's session. So today's webinar is jointly run by Canal River Trust's James Long, who's the Urban Engagement Manager, and Carrie House, who's Project Officer for Community Engagement. And James and Carrie will be talking about creating connections within your wider community with a special focus on young people. So I will be now handing over to James.
Thank you. Hello. Yeah. So like Alexa said, my name's James. I work for the Canal River Trust in the Northwest region, managing community engagement projects, focusing on our urban communities around our waterways. So looking at kind of the big sort of city regions of Liverpool and Manchester. So thank you very much for joining myself and my colleague Carrie for our presentation today. Carrie's going to talk a bit more about her role in the trust and her projects when we get to her section in the presentation. So I will kick off. So really today is just about kind of talking a little bit about young people and the needs and the wants that young people might have, and how as projects and groups we can provide opportunities that hopefully meet those needs and meet young people's expectations, alongside giving them an excellent experience with your organisation, and also hopefully a little bit of thought about how we can make those opportunities appealing and engaging for young people. Obviously, when we're talking about young people in the sort of Canal River Trust, when we think about young people and youth engagement, we generally think of people up to the age of 25. But I guess it's important to remember that young people in themselves aren't a generic group, and that different young people in different communities and individual young people, depending on their specific circumstances, will have different needs and wants from a project. So the sort of the first thing that we'd like to say, and using the chat function, if I can invite you to spend a couple of minutes just thinking about what do we think collectively, what do we think that young people would want from being involved in the projects or opportunities your group or organisation might offer. So what do we think young people want from getting involved and volunteering?
And just wait for a couple of seconds for people to pop their answers into the chat. So yes, well, we're getting a couple of bits through already. So one of we've got gaining skills and experience is one of them. Again, a few people are saying skills and experience seems to be quite important for young people. Accreditation and skills and socialisation. To have fun, which again I think is a very important one, which is sometimes overlooked by a number of organisations. Actually, that's the main reason a lot of people do volunteer. We also have so accredited skills, social contact, looking back at a project of how it started and how it's become. So looking back at your family history and something that you enjoyed as a child and coming back and sort of really giving back to it as well. See, being involved in a project that they can value. New experiences. So a lot of really good ideas coming through. Yeah,
fantastic. No, I think that's those certainly resonate with the experience that I've got from the projects I've been involved with the trust. I think it is about obviously enjoyment, but also people wanting experience and development for their future. And I think that the point about sort of family history and community history is really, really important, and really a useful kind of way for us to think about if we're talking about heritage or history with young people, what makes it relevant and important to them. So moving on from those ideas, fortunately they kind of correspond very well with the kind of the ideas and the feedback that we've had from young people in the trust. So we did a national survey of young people in 2019, obviously before COVID, before the lockdown, but there's been sort of subsequent work that organisations, I've seen some research that Sport England have done, and also the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. And really at the moment, the two top concerns that young people sort of talk about that they're kind of interested in are their well-being. So obviously the impact of COVID-19 and lockdown on people's, I guess, physical health, but also emotional well-being, opportunities, socially, people's mental health, isolation, not being able to see friends and family and get out and about has had an impact, and also future employment and careers. So obviously we know earlier in the summer there was there was a lot of talk around disruption to GCSEs and A levels and the impact that had on people progressing to university. People's experiences of learning at the moment, whether it's at school or college, are sort of disrupted by the effect of COVID, and there's a lot of coverage in the media about people kind of losing time, I suppose, in their academic lives, but also I think young people worrying kind of about the future and the impact on the economy and how that's going to affect them. So those are kind of sort of concerns for young people. In terms of issues that young people care about, the environment always comes up when we're talking to young people as an issue that people are concerned about. Obviously, globally, the environment, we've got climate change, the impact of plastic pollution or litter, there's the global environmental situation, but also young people's concerned about the local environment on their doorstep. So whether that's how the things that they can do local to them that might improve the environment on a global scale, or valuing green and hopefully for us green and blue spaces on their doorstep that they can enjoy and value and spend time in, and caring for those is really important, especially at the moment when people's opportunities to access destinations and things further afield are limited. Things accessible on the doorstep is really important. Volunteering, I think we'd all say, can have a positive impact on people's well-being, especially on younger people. There's the skills, there's the experience, but also there is a social element to it. There is a sense of purpose, of achievement, of connecting to the community around us. Fun is important, not just young people. People of speaking as a former young person, I think everyone appreciates an enjoyable activity that's engaging, and as alongside that sense of giving back. And it is important. Recognition does matter. So whether it's about accreditation or opportunities for kind of certificates or future skills, or just kind of a thank you, or a reward or some sort of incentive, recognizing that people have made a contribution is really important for young people. So kind of just to talk about Canal River Trust and our sort of world of youth engagement. So we've got a strategic aim within the trust to grow this area of activity. So we're hoping that by 2025, the trust will be engaging 1 million people, young people, every year across all of our activities. So an ambitious target. Alongside that, we've got ambition around having young people contributing 100,000 hours a year by 2025 to our volunteering, our sort of social action activities. And we've recently, this year, we've updated and refreshed our youth engagement framework, which is available on the trust website. It is it's a high level strategy document, but it is interesting. It's got some really good examples of the work that the trust's done that people can look at. And within that framework, we've kind of split our youth engagement work into 3 really key themes that dovetail and overlap and hopefully meet some of the needs that we've discussed on the previous slide. So social action, so in terms of social action, we'd be talking about, could be hands-on environmental volunteering, it could be people getting out, whether that's cleaning up litter and rubbish from the canal, making environmental improvements, or it could be young people kind of campaigning and raising awareness about an issue. That's a really important theme. Health and well-being is fantastic, is important, and something where the trust really hope that we can make a contribution to young people in their lives. And also skills development and employability is absolutely key. As an organisation, we want to have that positive impact for young people in the here and now in their lives, but also we want people to be having experiences and gaining things from engagement with the trust that will benefit them in the future. So I'm going to hand over the talking to Carrie now, who's going to talk about project that she's been involved with and the work that she's done.
Yeah, I'll just tell you a little bit about my role for a bit of context before I start talking about the work we've done with the Scouts. So my project is a community engagement project, and it's part of the wider Kendal to Lancaster Towpath Trail project. I'm based up on the far north of the Lancaster Canal, up at Stainton, which isn't far from Kendal. And for anyone who doesn't know the area, the Lancaster Canal, at least the water in the Lancaster Canal, stops at Stainton. North of Stainton, between Stainton and Kendal, it's disused mostly. It's a patchwork of drained and filled in sections. It's under various different land ownerships and land uses. There's also active restoration work in the area. Some of you may be familiar with Lancaster Canal Trust and the first furlong restoration work, which is actually happening at Stainton. So yeah, my role is mostly community engagement, and the centerpiece of this role is Stainton Aqueduct, which has recently been restored following damage that it sustained during Storms Desmond and Eva in 2015. It's been a big restoration project. It's been going on for 2 years. It's had a lot of setbacks due to the weather and more flooding, ironically. So the aim of my role, which is entirely funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, who part funded the restoration at Stainton, is to really get the community, the local community and visitors from further afield really excited about the aqueduct, and engaged and involved with caring for it, as well as the canal and nearby infrastructure like Lancaster Tunnel and Sedgwick Aqueduct, and really kind of getting them to see the benefits of having these assets restored and within the community. So I do that through organising a number of lottery funded activities such as training. So we're able to provide free dry stone walling and oral history interviewing training for the community. I'm leading on some quite small scale compared to say the first furlong, but small scale restoration work with my volunteers, like rebuilding the dry stone walls at Lancaster Tunnel, organising guided tours and walks. So we've just done Heritage Open Days in September, doing schools outreach and working with young people, and also we'll be installing some interpretation in the area, hopefully very soon. And this community engagement project sits within a much bigger picture. I'm employed by Canal and River Trust, but within this role, I work as a member of Lancaster Canal Regeneration Partnership, alongside other waterway groups, restoration groups, and local authorities. And the short-term aim of this group is to create a multi-user trail along the line of the Lancaster Canal between Kendal and Lancaster, so that takes in all the disused bits as well. And that is the Towpath Trail from the Towpath Trail project name. And that would hopefully be another step on the road to a full restoration by raising the profile of the area, getting people walking the path, and generating public and stakeholder support. And like most other National Lottery Heritage funded projects, I have targets to engage with young people, and I'm sure some of you have these targets as well. And I mean, it's not just about meeting the targets. It is really important to ensure that young people are engaged with restoration work so that the canal is looked after into the future. And I think at the moment we're in a period of change and you know, having to change the way we deliver things. So having young people involved, having fresh blood into our groups and having these new ideas also makes the canal and our work resilient to these changes that are coming in. Can I have the next slide, please? There are challenges to connecting with young people in this area. Stainton is very rural. There are very few people living within 1 kilometre of the canal corridor anyway, never mind young people. Quite a lot of it is retirees. It's a really beautiful area, so people have moved there to kind of retire. There are schools, but they are quite small, and you find that the whole school might be the size of one class in an inner city school. There's also quite limited parking and other facilities, so there's quite limited toilet facilities and hand washing facilities. There's certainly nowhere I can think of that you could easily park a big coach, which does make it quite difficult for schools to come out and visit. And also, young people have busy lives. James has touched on that. They study, they work, they have their social lives. So I know that anything that I have to offer has to compete with that. Some ideas that I had before this Scout event didn't work, and I did want to just touch on that slightly because I think it's important, if you are trying to achieve something and it doesn't work, just to take a step back, look at what went wrong and just try again, especially when you're working with a demographic like young people. If you've not worked with them before, it might just be that your communication style needs a bit of tweaking, or it might be that the offer itself isn't actually offering your target audience enough, you know, development opportunities. So one project that I tried to do last year was work with UCLan, University in Preston, whose history students in their second year, they do a community history module, and they so I approached them with some ideas for projects which I thought their students could maybe take on and do towards their courses, and they were mostly things like digital exhibitions, so having collections of information and photos on a web page. I attached a budget to these as well, which I thought might be quite attractive to them. And I was quite disappointed to find that no students wanted to do my projects, which feels like a bit of a kick in the teeth. It does feel a bit disappointing when that happens, but I will be working with the team at the university to try and work out whether I need to adjust how I communicate the opportunity, or actually look at the opportunity itself and think, you know, is that really an opportunity for the students, or is that just something that I'm trying to get done? So yeah, no shame at all if something doesn't work, in just being honest with yourself about what might have gone wrong and having another pop at it. One event that did go well, which is what I'm going to talk about now, is a work party with the Explorer Scouts, which was held in August last year. The Explorer Scouts are an older age group. They're 14 to 18 years old. I believe they have to leave by their 18th birthday. And most people that came on this work party that I organised were kind of school leaver age, I guess. They were 16 to 17 years old. The main task that I needed help with was clearing vegetation at Lancaster Tunnel in preparation for its Transport Trust Red Wheel unveiling, which was in early September last year. So it was all your classic vegetation removal tasks, just to ensure that visitors could actually get to the tunnel safely, see it, so no overhanging vegetation, and that the event could accommodate, you know, about 40 or 50 people that attended. So it was just one of those all hands on deck over a short space of time, where it's really helpful to have a large group in, just hitting something really hard. I advertised it through the Scouts themselves, so I didn't go out and try and recruit a fresh Scout group. I already knew the leader, and we advertised it as a community impact event, which is something that the Scouts do that they can use to contribute towards other awards, towards bigger awards. So there were Scouts at this event that were essentially collecting the hours to put towards their Diamond and Platinum awards. So this is a before and after of some of the work that they did. And you can see that the tunnel is much easier to access and to see from the main entrance there. I was really impressed with the amount and the standard of work that they put in. And this was kind of like the main event task that I had planned for them, as it were. But I was really pleased that I'd lined some backup tasks for them, because the group did this in a day. And it was a 2-day event. So it did mean that we were able to go on and do some more stuff on the second day. And I will say that about working with young people, is to be a little bit flexible in your timescales and your expectations. It can be quite hard to predict, I find, whether you're going to have a group that turns in and absolutely blitzes it like this group does, or whether it might take a little bit longer. So just make sure you've got some backup tasks for them to do, because you don't want them getting bored and thinking that canal restoration's really boring and not wanting to come back. But equally, it might be that you don't get absolutely everything you want to do done in a day, and I think it's important in that situation to remember that it's about building a relationship. They can come back and finish that job another time, and the relationship that you can build with that group in an ongoing sense is possibly more valuable than just getting one piece of work done on one day. As it was, this was a really successful session. We had 20 Scouts and several leaders over 2 days. So with the Scouts, with the leaders, and with the support staff that we had there, we had about 30 people in attendance over a weekend, and we got really good feedback as well. And I've talked about the importance of evaluating. So I thought I'd just run through a little evaluation here of some of the reasons why we thought that it worked. The first being that the leaders were already engaged with the project. One of the leaders who was actually instrumental in advertising this was involved with the Stainton rebuild. So he was able to promote this opportunity with a passion for the heritage and an understanding of the benefits that the Scouts would get out of it. And I do find if you start asking around, your existing contacts, you will find people who are Scout leaders, or who are DAV leaders, or who work in schools, either in support roles or in teaching roles, and they can be a really, really good in to getting events like this and relationships like this off the ground. The event also tapped into the existing interests of these groups. These particular groups of Scouts that were involved already have really popular events that are billed as like getting muddy events. So it's opportunities for them to come out, get their hands dirty, get knee deep in mud, and have a play with some tools. And yeah, it was right up their alley. And the other side of that is that we were able to show that that kind of outdoor work is a really good way to develop transferable skills. You said before about how, you know, we all know that these kind of the young people wanting to develop these kind of skills, and the work that we do in terms of restoration, which can initially sound quite specialist, is a really good way to develop these transferable skills. So on this work party, they develop their practical skills, they develop their team working skills, their communication, and their initiative as well. With them being a slightly older age group, we were able to set them loose to some degree and kind of figure out themselves which piece of, say, which tree branch they were going to take down next. There was a variety of tasks on offer. Within that one major vegetation removal task, we were able to set people of different abilities off on different tasks. Some of the tasks did require a little bit more delicacy, like cutting brambles out of dry stone walls, which does require probably slightly more skills on with the tools. And they were able to and encouraged to explore a little bit, both explore the structure and the heritage itself, but also to kind of test their own abilities, maybe take on a new task that they've not done before, or learn how to use a new tool that they've not used before. And it's a kind of concept of like acceptable risk. We had the support and the expertise there on site to allow them to be curious and to push themselves and to learn something new, but obviously safely because we were there. The photos here are some of the things that they found while they were exploring. So the top one is it's a flame shoulder moth, which was roosting in the moss on one of the walls. And these islets that are inside Lancaster Tunnel, which I have to confess I'd never noticed before, and I've been going to the tunnel for months before this, and it was really nice for me to have those kind of fresh eyes on the site, picking out interesting things and teaching me a little bit in some ways. And who doesn't love being able to get in the bed of the canal and stick their head in a tunnel and actually have a proper look at the heritage and what's in there. I had a Canal and River Trust ecologist and heritage advisor for the region out on site over the weekend to be able to answer some of the questions that they had about these things that they were discovering. And I guess I tried to provide them an experience. So as well as the experience of being in and around the heritage and having a facility to ask those questions and explore, providing the experience logistically as well. So tools were provided, PPE was provided, and it was kind of a kit that my other volunteers used. So it didn't require any specialist kit being bought. I also catered the whole weekend. The Scouts brought their own stoves, which really added to the experience, but also made it a little bit cheaper for me to cater, I think. So I took hot dogs, bread rolls, fruit, cereal bars, squash, teas and coffees, that kind of thing, and catered the whole weekend for about £40, which I really didn't think, considering the amount of work that they did, that's really not bad at all. They did manage to eat 70 hot dogs between them over 2 days, but I think the leaders had a bit of a hand in that as well. It was a full weekend. I actually offered a full weekend on the advice of the Scouts, which I think is one of the benefits of working with a partnership, with a partner group, and working closely with the leaders to make sure that you're offering something that is going to work for the group itself. There was flexibility whether they came to both days or just one day, and in the end I don't think any Scout was able to come on both days because the whole group, all 20 of them, had part-time jobs and were either working on the Saturday or the Sunday. Reward and recognition. Yeah, I've talked a little bit about personal development, but there was slightly more literal rewards and recognition after the event as well. So they all received a participation badge, which you'll see in a minute. And obviously these hours contributed to other awards that they were doing. The group was also recognised at the Red Wheel event itself. They were able to send groups. They were able to send representatives in their uniform, and they were thanked on social media, and the story of the work that they'd done went out in local publications. And follow-up. I will say follow-up has been really challenging this year. I think we're all finding that it's difficult to know which groups are actually up and running as normal, which aren't, and this Scout group, we were able to maintain the relationship up until COVID, I guess, because they came to the event afterwards. But my best advice I can give at this on the minute is just to be proactive yourself. Put some reminders in your diary to keep reaching out to these groups and finding out when they're back, and when they're operating normally. Oh no, not the last one. I forgot about these. So here's some pictures of the Scouts with their goodie bags, and this is the badge that we had custom made. It is just a fun badge, you know. It's not a big award for them. It was just a thank you, and something that's quite distinctive that they can stitch onto their blazers or even onto their bag or whatever they want, as a little memento of the work that they've done. That is Lancaster Tunnel, and that also kind of means that they can take the canal with them. So when they go off to their events, they've got a little badge that actually says Lancaster Canal, which other people might stop them and ask questions about. And this is the last one. I just wanted to whiz really quickly through some of the other plans for youth engagement that I've got upcoming for this project, because I think the next couple of months could potentially be quite challenging, but I'm determined to adapt what we're doing to still be able to engage with young people. One thing that the National Lottery have asked me to do is recruit community champions, which are essentially volunteers that will take over the mantle from me, from my project, and continue to deliver some of the project work at the time when the grant is over and I'm no longer in post. So, you know, organising community events and, you know, litter picks and being able to go out in a sort of a warden type capacity and report problems back to Canal and River Trust that may need dealing with. And there's no reason why that kind of role can't be done by a young person or by a group of young people, or maybe even by a family who already get out and about on the canal and want to contribute in some way. So I'll be looking at that role. Generally making sure that every event that I'm already doing is family inclusive. I find that my bat walks, which we've been doing up at Lancaster Tunnel and at Stainton Aqueduct, are quite popular, particularly with older children. I'm also working with groups like Jogging Pals up at Kendal, who they always have family options within their events. So we've recently been organising a 10k run, and they make sure there's a family option there, like a shorter run, and that there's kind of quizzes and things for families to do while they're waiting for their runners. Developing the online presence for this project is also on my list for this year. I think that's probably on everyone's list at the moment with the situation that we're in. I've already worked with Canal and River Trust Mapping, the GIS team, and Bill Froggatt, who's the Heritage Advisor for the Northwest region, to create a virtual tour, which the link is there. So I don't know if there is facility to share that link after this presentation so that people can have a look. This particular tour we've created isn't aimed at young people, but I think it's possible, you know, to do that and to tie some interactive element into these virtual tours that will encourage young people to come out and maybe participate in challenges along the canal or something. And the other big theme for the next, you know, couple of months is going to be self-led activities. While we can't necessarily get out to deliver things ourselves in groups, what can schools do? So what can schools do or download off the internet in their own time and then feed back to us? Or maybe they can go out and be making bat boxes or making bird boxes or something, which my team could then collect and go and install, and we could have some kind of monitoring process between us, some kind of ongoing survey process that we can do, I guess, together but apart at the moment. And also more informal self-led activities. So just ideas, I'm in the process of coming up with ideas to get families out and on the canal in their own time. This includes walking trail leaflets. So when the time comes that I'm having interpretation installed, producing some downloadable leaflets that tie in with that and contain maybe challenges that families can get involved with on social media and connect with the project that way. And I did just finally want to give a big plug to Canal and River Trust's Explorers website, which has a whole kind of archive of downloadable games, craft activities, which you can do and are quite good to provide at events like Waterways Bingo. So please do go on and have a look at things like that. And thank you. I'll just hand back over to James now.
Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, so I think you know, the case that Carrie's shared really covers a lot of the kind of key points that we're going to talk about in the presentation, and certainly especially in the sort of current climate we find ourselves in of COVID and ongoing restrictions and lockdown, a lot of work with young people, I think, has to be a bit of a spirit of being experimental and a little bit of trial and error, a little bit of getting feedback and understanding from either the professionals, so teachers, group leaders that work with young people, or from young people themselves about how we can adapt and develop what we're doing to meet their needs. A great kind of example that Carrie came up with too there is about working with partner groups. So for a lot of organisations, including the Canal River Trust to some extent, the capacity and the time to recruit and kind of get together a cohort or a group of young people, either as individuals or for a group project, is time consuming and is challenging. So working with partner organisations is a real kind of bonus for us. I think it's a great way to engage with a community that maybe you wouldn't be able to reach out to yourselves. So if you can find a partner organisation, they're a bit of a doorway into the communities around your project, and obviously accessing people that maybe not find their way to yourselves and what you're doing. And what I've always found in my work with the trust is that these organisations are usually always looking for opportunities for things for their young people, for members of their groups to get involved with. NCS, which is the National Citizen Service, obviously their programme was disrupted this summer, but in previous years, the Canal River Trust, we've done lots of work with them up and down the country. It's been a really interesting, eye-opening experience of getting young people who are motivated and engaged and happy to get involved in sort of practical projects, but also groups there that have done bits around awareness raising for the trust, campaigning, and sort of kind of doing online things as well as kind of more practical tasks. Then the uniform groups like Carrie's worked with, I think that they're always fantastic, and then there's sort of colleges and schools that are often looking for either opportunities that overlap with their curriculum or enrichment opportunities for the young people that they're working with. And also at the moment, now is the time when people are trying to adapt to new ways of working, to new ways of delivering what they need to with their young people. So there's an opportunity there for all of us to reach out to people and look at ways that we can connect and offer something that can benefit our groups, our organisations, but also the partners that we might want to work with. I think this is a key point that again, where working with partners lightens the load a little bit, is that our expectation within the Canal River Trust is that if we're working with a partner group, that organisation would be supervising those young people. Obviously we've got our processes in place, and we've got procedures and risk assessments and things that we do, but at the same time, the responsibility for those young people is definitely it's led by the people that know them, the people that work with them. And that's sometimes I feel a bit of a relief particularly for maybe smaller groups that don't have a lot of experience maybe, or if you're feeling cautious about working with young people, working with some partners could be a really great way to kind of get a bit of upskilling and a bit of increased confidence around that. Another good thing is that I think a lot of groups can come with their own resources or funding or specific skills. So when we worked with NCS groups or Prince's Trust groups in the past, a lot of those young people, as part of the programme they're doing, there's an element of fundraising for the projects that they want to complete. So that was fantastic. We're not necessarily talking about a massive amount, but those groups were able to get some resources to complete a practical project with us. And thinking about skills as well too. If you're looking at a college or a school, it could be that you're developing a project or opportunity that meets the kind of skill set of a particular group of students who are studying a particular program or course. So we've got another quick activity where we're going to sort of throw out and invite you to contribute ideas into the chat about possible groups, possible partner groups that you could approach to work with. Obviously, we've given some hints through the presentation so far, but I guess just thinking about opportunities. Some of them might be very specific to your local area, or some of them could just be more sort of generic ideas. So what partner groups could we approach to support the work that we're doing on the ground?
Okay, so we'll just give a bit of time for people to pop there. We've got bits and bobs in the chat. Okay, so we've got one already. So we've got the local DOV groups, Scouts, university and other conservation groups. One that I've had a bit of experience working with recently are local dog walkers, actually, who use the canals and use open spaces. They've become a surprising help for some of my projects locally. We've also had potentially the Young Archaeologists Club has come up, local rangers, Rotary clubs, U3A. Then we have local schools. One fellow mentioned we have engaged primary schools, but not high schools just yet. We've got cadets, ski scouts, home education groups. So a lot of groups coming up. So I think it's quite impressive.
Yeah, no, they're all fantastic. I think the dog walking groups are a really interesting one, isn't it? Because you've got people that have got, they're not necessarily might not necessarily be a formal like constituted group, but you have got a group of people who've got a vested interest in the space that you're caring for. So that's, we've done some work with good gym type groups. So they're kind of people sign up for the good gym. They do kind of running activities, but as part of that, they do what they call community missions, where you'll run to somewhere and then do some kind of good work. So they do maybe gardening projects, or they'll run to a community centre and fix a fence or something. So it's quite an active volunteering opportunity.
Sounds amazing. A few more interesting ones have just come up as well. So churches, so these are individuals who might be interested in other heritage and have often have their own safeguarding procedures in place already. Young carers often get involved.
Yeah.
One member has formed a partnership with a stand-up paddleboard group, so they can also supervise young people, and that way geocaches has come up as well.
Yeah. No, I think the subgroups are a really good example. It's something we obviously, depending on the location and the resource that's available, sometimes there's a cost involved, but we've always found within the trust that getting well, not just young people, getting people an opportunity to get out on the water, either as part of an activity or as a kind of a reward or an incentive afterwards, is always really useful and attractive. But also it really reinforces the benefit and the value of the water and the waterways for people in the community too.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Good stuff. So we share our ideas. So thinking in the current climate, and Carrie touched on it a little bit, that there might be opportunities that if we are working with partner groups, if we look at the picture in the presentation, we're probably not in a position where we can have dozens of people on a site working together. So it might be about opportunities where there's maybe a remote activity or a self-led activity that could be delivered off site. So it could be a group making bat boxes for you, or bird boxes that are later installed on site. If it's maybe it could be a bit of work if you wanted to create a walking trail. Could people do the kind of legwork, no pun intended, individually or as a small group, and then be working off site on kind of the creative or the design element on that? It's about thinking about it's an opportunity, I think, for us all to think about the quality of the experience for the people that we're engaging, and whether it's about obviously we're in lockdown at the moment, which is going to affect people's volunteering activities, but certainly for the foreseeable future, it is maybe thinking about smaller group activities. I think it's really important to, as kind of the example that Carrie gave, to make sure that we're prepared and we're planned, we're ready to welcome any groups that we're inviting to take part in our projects. A lot of groups will want information reasonably before they start, so some of that might be about the kind of practical logistical details, but also it's good. It's safe if you were going to work with a school or a college or even a group of university students, maybe going and visiting them at their base before they engage with your project, to go in and talking to them, getting some kind of buy-in, engaging them. Some groups, part of their ethos is about developing young people's leadership skills and young people's sort of project management skills, I guess, for want of a better phrase. So it's about creating opportunities to support those young people to maybe take the lead and develop some ideas about what they might want to do to contribute to your project. And I think the final point about this is it's really important to be flexible with young people, whether groups or individually, and think about that in terms of your expectations. Some groups might want to work with you on an ongoing basis. Other groups, it might be that they're working in a very time limited way. Some organisations that work with young people only work with those young people in a specific period of weeks or months. So you might have a group for hopefully a productive period, and then they'll progress on to another opportunity or another activity. Okay, so I am going to hopefully share a video now about a project that the Canal River Trust were involved with in Sheffield. So we were lucky enough with this project, we accessed some external funding from the Co-op Foundation, a stream of funding they had about tackling youth loneliness. So it was a project designed to sort of think about young people and their well-being, but as we'll hopefully see in the video, we were able to turn that into a practical project that worked on the ground. Hopefully the video will work.
So we're Urban Wilderness, and we've come to this place to work with the Canal Rivers Trust, and we are so pleased that this group of young people came to a space in the canal that they've never been to before. They've created benches, they've created a social place for them to meet their friends, they have created identity for the space with an amazing visual wall. Once you get into the mindset, you just like, you just don't think about anything, it's just really therapeutic, yeah. It's also got them out together, socialising, and then just enjoying being together and learning new skills. And that is a really important part for them, because otherwise they're sat at home and depression kicks in. They've got nothing to do, so it's been absolutely fun. It's really nice. It's calm, it's quiet, not many people. It just looks nice. Yeah. As an organisation, the Canal River Trust definitely wants to be doing more of this. These are brilliant examples of ways that you can bring people down by the water and really demonstrate the difference that the waterways can make to people's lives. You know, you're in the middle of a really urban environment, and actually these can be the green and blue spaces that really offer these new opportunities that can enhance people's lives. It creates a great deal of confidence and self-esteem in their own abilities, and the achievement that they feel in what they've done today. They're going around and exploring independently, which is something they might not do normally. Yeah, they've just thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, so again, that was another project we delivered in partnership. So obviously with the organisation there in Sheffield, Endeavour, who are an education charity working with young people that aren't in mainstream secondary education, and also because of the funding we access, we were able to work with Urban Wilderness, who produced the film as well, which is a fantastic resource for us to use to talk about that project. I think that the thing about that project was we really focused so much on the young people involved and their experience, as well as the outcome. We were taking hoping to transform that space and make it different, and it was all about create a space where people could socialize and spend time together. That was why the kind of seating idea came into it, and that was something that the young people were very keen on. But I think the interesting was all the young people there before. We were on site with them for 4 days, and before that, none of them had really been involved in any sort of projects like that before. They weren't really familiar with the canal, even though it was 10 minutes, 10-minute walk from where they were based, and for some of them closer to where they lived. It was about giving them an opportunity to try something new, obviously with support and making sure that they were able to do it, safely and get the learning out of it. But it was really about giving those young people the opportunity to try something new in it and explore it, and that was kind of how we were able to deliver the outcomes that obviously the funder wanted to see the physical project completed, but they were really interested in the sort of the story and those young people's experiences and how they were able to go and build their confidence and sort of get involved, and at the end of the project, the young people were really very proud of the work they'd done, and very kind of sort of surprised as well, some of them too, that they've been able to deliver something in the way that they had and complete it when they hadn't done something like that before. So thinking about young people and young people as volunteers, and it's maybe about thinking about different opportunities. So Carrie sort of touched on it. What in these times, what can young people contribute that other volunteers or other people might not be able to, and really that could be any area of your project or your group. I know on the original the Saturday session for the conference. The keynote speakers talked a lot about involving young people in governance, and that could be a fantastic way to get different perspectives at kind of the committee or the board level of a group. Obviously, young people, we talk a lot about young people in the digital world and social media. Some young people do have very good skills and ideas and creative ways of developing content or things to go online, and through involving young people in creating that, you're sort of more likely to be able to create content that would engage other young people. So I think that's there's a fantastic opportunity there. Things like marketing, fundraising is something as well where I've always found young people, given the right support and the right kind of understanding, can be very enthusiastic about and very, very engaged with that way of reaching out and bringing people into an organisation. We've talked previously about colleges and students from a university or a college. They can contribute to an organisation, but also get something for their course, for their academic studies, and the kind of the payoff from that is you can sometimes get work and projects delivered that are done to quite a high sort of professional standard that are genuinely useful for the organisation that you're working in. So it's really about young people can bring in fresh ideas and new perspectives, which is a real value in sort of changing and challenging times. The picture on this slide, which you might have to squint to make out, is about a campaign that the Armed Forces ran a couple of years ago about attracting young people into the forces, and it was kind of based around looking at the way young people live their lives now. So we might talk about people being millennials, which is a bit of a clumsy term, or this image of young people that maybe are obsessed with computer games or spend all their time messaging each other on social media. Actually, there's a sort of a skill and a value in that can be harnessed and used to kind of the benefit of an organisation. That's really kind of the opportunity, especially if we're thinking about things that people can do remotely or maybe without having to be on site doing physical activities, engaging with young people or a group of young people around developing something that can benefit your group or your organisation in that kind of sphere could be really beneficial at a time like this. Okay, so these are our final thoughts on the topic, and then obviously we have some discussion about questions and answers and such. I think it's really important when we think about young people, and again, obviously framed with the kind of the comment at the beginning that not all young people are the same. Young people do want different things. Try and think about different, distinctive opportunities, distinctive activities that can, I guess, capture young people's imagination and interest, be beneficial for them, but also bring the benefit to you. So you're getting the kind of the benefit of the unique skill set that hopefully young people can contribute to your organisation. And also, I think it's about recognising, as Carrie said, the group of young people that she's with, for example, in Stainton, those young people might have been working, they might have been living away from the not easily travelling distance to the project site. So thinking about young people having different wants and needs, and really kind of hopefully being able to adapt and meet those as best as you can. Online work, I think it's not the answer to everything, although at the moment, the kind of the opportunities any of us have for doing out and about on the ground or face-to-face activities are limited and are curtailed, certainly for the immediate future. But young people can contribute in that area, but at the same time, that's not the full picture. And some young people don't have the skills and interest in sort of digital things. Some young people do really enjoy the kind of some of the more practical hands-on examples that we've seen, sort of pictures and heard stories about through this presentation. So it's important to bear that in mind and not just think young people are all about sort of social media and the online world. And really, again, the aspect of working with partner groups can be easier. Obviously, sometimes it might not be easier, and it very much depends on, I guess, the connection you're able to make with the people who lead or support or run, whether they're volunteers or paid members of staff from other organisation. The people that support those partner groups get a good relationship with them so that they can understand your project, and then you've kind of got an extra voice when you do hopefully engage with the young people they work with about sort of talking about your project and your opportunity and what you're trying to do. And this kind of underlines everything really, and it's the closest I'll come to common sense, I imagine, today. It's about making sure that you're prepared, working with young people. can be rewarding, bring a fantastic energy and enthusiasm to any project. Can be challenging for us as either volunteers or professionals and organisations, and challenging for young people too. Some people might not be used to working in the kind of the environments and the settings that we're creating and we're offering for them. So it's important to be flexible, to have realistic. I think wherever possible, having a plan B, maybe a plan C is important as well, because if you're working with a group of young people or even an individual young person and you've committed to working with them and the task at hand isn't necessarily working as well as it could, it's important to maybe have a bit of variety and be able to mix it up when you can, so you're kind of able to still meet the needs and capture hopefully the energy and the enthusiasm that can be there. And also I think my final point is don't feel we've talked about a lot in this presentation that it's about understanding the support you can have in your local area or nationally. So volunteer centres, councils, voluntary services, they can offer support about accessing and working with groups of young people. If as an organisation you've got questions about things like safeguarding and procedures around that, every local authority area has got a sort of a local safeguarding children's board. It might have a different name for that, but they can give really solid advice about working with young volunteers and safeguarding. And also in the sort of current COVID situation, there are rules and restrictions. Some obviously for schools and for education, they're a bit different at the moment, but for the kind of the youth sector, whether that's local authority youth services or volunteer organisations, there's extra guidance they're working with from the National Youth Agency, which is a kind of sector wide umbrella organisation, or UK Youth, or large uniform groups as well have their sort of national bodies and organisations that can offer you guidance and support as well. And so thank you very much.
Thank you, James, thank you, James and Carrie, for your very informative session on how to really engage young people along with canal restoration and just volunteering in general. We had quite a fair few questions come in, so we'll try and answer as many of them as possible. So we've got about 5 minutes for these. So apologies if we don't get around to your questions, but what we'll do, we'll send it to James and Carrie after the talk, and we'll send it around to you as well. So we've had a question here asking whether you found any useful ways to engage disadvantaged young people that you might be able to share with us. Have you got any strategies or ideas that you can share?
Yeah, I think something I've always found is that I think a creative projects generally not everybody considers themselves as maybe a kind of an artist in the kind of classical sense, but giving those young people an opportunity to do something that is theirs and that they get kind of ownership on is really beneficial. And for some young people, it's not a position, unfortunately, they find themselves in very often. So with the Endeavour group in the film, the fact that they got to paint the wall of that, it was a toilet block at the Marina, was really, like, they were very excited about that, and it was something they hadn't had the chance to do before. And there's obviously there's kind of a bigger kind of cultural and social things about street art and graffiti and stuff like that, but those young people really enjoyed the chance to put out and create the design and do it themselves, and they really enjoyed that. And for some of the young people, that was the bit that kind of kept them coming back more than the kind of vegetation clearance and the woodwork side of it too.
Oh, fantastic. Brilliant. We've got another question here saying if you've had any experience of offering AQAs as part of involving young people within your project.
Yes, not with the trust, but I have previously in the Canal River Trust. We've used bits of accreditation like the sports leaders qualification, and we've done the John Muir Award. And I think being able to offer that as part of a project's really fantastic if you can do it. Obviously, there's kind of the process side of it, which in terms of being able to offer the accreditation and assessing it, and sometimes there is a bit of a cost involved. But I think anything like that's fantastic. And I think the good thing about AQAs is there's a real flexibility with that qualification. It's not like it's very much something that can be kind of led by the young people. It's not just saying, here's a list of things that we're going to tell you to do, and we'll tick it off and give you a certificate. So anything like that, I think, is brilliant.
Perfect. And we also have a question about what age of children / young people is it best to start working with if you haven't really delved into it before? So have you got any recommendations of what age range is good to start with?
I guess it would depend maybe about if you're going to work with a group, how receptive other groups in your area might be. I think that sort of Explorer Scout age group that Carrie worked with for the Stainton project, so they're 14 to 18 if I'm right. So that's obviously, that's in young people's terms, that's quite a wide age bracket, but what you've got with that is you've got people who've got, I guess, enough sort of skills and independence to tackle a project and get involved in it in a meaningful way, but at the same time you've got people that are still engaged and enthusiastic, and I suppose to some extent it depends a little bit about what marrying up the age group you want to work with the task at hand, and working that way. But I think that could be a good place to start. I don't know if that was that your experience, Carrie, working with that group?
Yeah, I really like working with that age group just because it is that nice kind of, and they do already have a little bit of experience and they can be a bit more independent. And I find it quite rewarding, but then again, it might depend what your background is as well. My background's working in higher education, so I do find that I gravitate towards those slightly older groups because I kind of understand them. I've worked with them before. But yeah, like that, I do think they're quite a good, for me, they were quite a good place to start.
Fantastic. So we've got time for maybe one or two more questions. So I think I've got one here for you, Carrie. Someone's asked, how many invested hours are recommended for a successful youth engagement activity, i.e. planning, stage, delivery, evaluation? And yeah, sort of have you got an indicative estimate that would be quite helpful to sort of give a rough outline? I
mean, for that particular Scouts work party, I don't really feel like I'd put much more time hours wise into organising it than I would, in any other kind of work party that I do with my adult volunteers. You've got to give an extra couple of hours for building those relationships. Although if you're going to go down the route of exploring the relationships that you already have, that may not, and seeing what they can offer, that may not be too time consuming. I think you can reasonably expect to spend a little bit more time on doing things like risk assessing. Logistically, you need to think about, we always think about safeguarding, I guess, and the legal side of it, but do take a little bit more time to think about whether you need to be doing stuff on the day, like making sure there's facility for a few extra breaks. If you are catering, bring more snacks. Young people do kind of have different needs in terms of their energy levels than adults do, and also they may be more kind of inclined to take risks, and maybe they have a little bit less experience with outdoor work. So I would say, yeah, the Scouts one probably didn't take me a huge amount longer to plan than a normal adult session, but yeah, a little bit of extra work into building the relationships and to risk assessing as well.
Thank you, Carrie. So it looks like we've now passed our allotted time for today's webinar. So apologies to everyone, we haven't had a chance to answer your questions. What I will do is I will download these off the Zoom website and I'll pass them to James and Carrie, and they'll probably be kind enough to answer the ones we didn't get round to. But with all that said and done, I just want to say thank you again so much, James and Carrie, for taking the time to talk to us today. I found it really informative, and I'm sure everyone else in the chat is really pleased with how it's gone. We should also remind everyone after this webinar closes, there will be a Slido poll, a link, just to ask them for a bit of feedback, which will really help us gauge what kind of workshops and events you like in the future. So please do fill it in when we get a chance. And don't forget to join us next week for our 5th webinar, looking at engaging those in politics and sort of getting engaged stakeholders with IWA's Alison Smedley. So again, just another massive thanks to everyone who's helping with Zoom, so James and Carrie, as well as the team behind the scenes ensuring that it runs smoothly, Jenny and Katie. So once again, thank you, James and Carrie, and we'll hopefully see you soon.